Here is the true life story outline, based on the title you provided, expanded into 6 individual parts. Each part is written in simple, engaging English and follows the narrative without repetition. He laughed when the little girl asked for range time. Then she stunned every SEAL there. The letter and the laughter. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished floors of the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado, California. Inside the officers' club, and the air was thick with the scent of strong coffee and the low murmur of men who had seen things that most people could not imagine. This was the domain of the elite, a place where Navy SEALs could relax between training evolutions and deployments. Among them stood Commander James Preacher Morrison, a man whose face was weathered by sun and wind from countless operations. He was a living legend in the special warfare community, or a sniper instructor whose patience and skill had shaped generations of killers. Across the room, holding a manila envelope against her chest as if it were a shield, was his 12-year-old daughter, Lily Morrison. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's quiet intensity. While the other military kids on base were concerned with video games and school, Lily spent her free time in a different world. She would sit for hours next to her father in his reloading room, watching him measure gunpowder with the precision of a chemist and seat bullets into brass casings. She asked 1,000 questions about wind speed, about ballistics, about the way light bent over distance. James never dismissed her curiosity. He saw the spark in her, the same spark that had made his late wife, Nicole, such an exceptional woman. Nicole had been a Marine Corps sniper, a fact that always made James smile. They had met on a joint training exercise, the 2 shooters recognizing a kindred spirit in each other. She had taught Lily the basics before she passed away from an illness 2 years prior. Now, it was just James and Lily, a team of 2 navigating a world of grief and discipline. Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. "Dad," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "Can I ask him now?" James looked down at her, pride swelling in his chest. He nodded toward a table in the corner where a cluster of senior officers sat. In the center was Colonel Bradford Vaughn, a Marine Corps officer known for his rigid adherence to tradition and his booming, condescending laugh. He was a guest at the base, coordinating a joint training exercise, and he held sway over the use of certain facilities. Lily walked over, her footsteps silent on the tile. She stopped in front of the colonel's table and waited to be acknowledged. Vaughn eventually looked up from his coffee, a bemused smirk playing on his lips. And who might you be, young lady?" he asked, his voice carrying. "I'm Lily Morrison, sir. My father is Commander Morrison." She held out a neatly written letter. "I've prepared a formal request to use precision point range this Saturday for a proficiency qualification." The table went quiet. A few SEALs nearby turned to watch. Vaughn took the letter, scanning it with theatrical slowness. He looked at the request for a military escort, the ammunition request, and the signature block. A proficiency qualification?" Vaughn read aloud, ensuring everyone could hear. He then let out a laugh. It wasn't a chuckle. It was a full-throated, dismissive roar. "That's rich? A little girl wants to play soldier on the big boy's range?" He looked around the room for validation. Some of the younger SEALs looked uncomfortable, but a few others offered polite smiles. "Sweetheart," Vaughn said, leaning forward as if imparting great wisdom, "do you know what happens on that range? Men become legends there. They don't let little girls come in with dolls and dream about guns they can't even lift. Run along now. Go play with your toys." Lily did not flinch. She didn't cry. She stood there, her gaze locked on the colonel's, her face an unreadable mask. She simply extended her hand. "My letter, sir. If you're not going to approve it, I'll need it back." The simple dignity of the request caught Vaughn off guard. He handed it back with a snort. As Lily turned and walked away, Vaughn chuckled again. this time louder. "Preacher, you might want to teach that girl some manners before she grows up thinking she's a Marine." James Morrison rose from his seat, his movements slow and deliberate. He walked past Vaughn without a word, but the look in his eyes was one of cold, quiet fury. He caught up to Lily outside. "I'm proud of you," he said, putting a hand on her shoulder. "He laughed," Lily said, stating a fact, not a complaint. "He doesn't know." "No," James agreed. He doesn't know a damn thing." What Vaughn and the others didn't know was that Lily Morrison wasn't just a commander's kid. She was the daughter of Sergeant Nicole Morrison, USMC, a woman whose name was still whispered with reverence in Marine Scout sniper platoons. And for the last 5 years, since she was 7 years old, Nicole had been training her daughter in secret, not just how to shoot, but how to become a shadow, how to read the wind, and how to understand the profound responsibility of a trigger finger. The silent mentor. That evening, back in their modest on-base housing, the atmosphere was calm. The letter from the officers' club lay on the kitchen table. James poured himself a glass of water while Lily went to her room. She returned a moment later, carrying a worn leather-bound journal. It was her mother's. James's breath caught in his throat. He had seen that journal 100 times, but Lily rarely took it out. She opened it to a page filled with tight, precise handwriting and detailed wind charts. "Mom always said that the loudest person in the room is usually the least dangerous," Lily said, tracing her mother's script with her finger. "She said that a real sniper doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. The target is the only witness that matters." James sat down heavily. She was right. The journal was a treasure trove of military knowledge. Nicole had spent her final months, and when she was too weak to train physically, writing down everything she knew. It was her legacy to her daughter. There were chapters on mirage reading, on calculating the Coriolis effect for long-range shots, on building natural camouflage, and on the mental game of patience. Nicole had not just taught Lily to shoot, she had taught her to think like a shooter. The secret training sessions had been the stuff of legend. Starting at age 7, Nicole would take Lily out to remote desert areas far from the prying eyes of the base. They started with a Red Ryder BB gun, learning the basics of sight picture and trigger control. By age 9, Lily was shooting a .22 caliber rifle, hitting spent shotgun shells at 100 yards. By 10, Nicole had introduced her to her own service rifle, a Remington 700 bolt action, carefully managing the recoil and ensuring Lily understood the power she was wielding. And they never told James the full extent of it. Nicole wanted to protect him, to let him think they were just doing light plinking. But the reality was far more intense. Nicole would tie a rope to Lily's waist and make her crawl through brush for an hour to get into position for a single shot. She would have her sit motionless for hours, observing animal behavior, learning to become part of the landscape. One of the entries in the journal detailed a specific drill Nicole called the Trial of Silence. Lily had to sit in a hide site from sunrise to sunset, with no food, no water, and no movement. If she moved, the drill ended. She passed on her 3rd attempt. "Dad," Lily said, closing the journal, "I need to shoot on Saturday. Not to prove that old man wrong. I need to do it for Mom, to show that her training meant something." James understood. This wasn't about revenge for the laughter. It was about honoring a legacy. The next day, James made a few discreet phone calls. He didn't go through the normal chain of command. Instead, he called Master Chief Carl "Steady" Hansen, the senior enlisted leader of SEAL Team 7's sniper cell. Steady was an old friend and had been one of the pallbearers at Nicole's funeral. "Steady," James said into the phone. "I need a favor, a big one." "Name it, preacher," the gruff voice on the other end replied. "Precision point range, and Saturday at 600. I need you there as an independent safety officer and witness, and I need you to bring a standard SEAL qualification target packet." There was a pause on the line. "For who? You doing some research?" "No," James said. looking at Lily, who was reading her mother's journal at the kitchen table. For Lily. She's ready. The silence stretched for a long time. Steady knew Lily. He had bounced her on his knee as a baby. He knew about the training with Nicole, but like James, and he didn't know the full depth of it. "Preacher," Steady finally said, his voice losing its usual hard edge. "That range is no joke. The wind does strange things down there. The stress. Are you sure?" "She's her mother's daughter, Steady. I've never been more sure of anything." "All right," Steady conceded. 0600, but I'm bringing a med kit just in case she gets hurt by the recoil. No offense, but she's 12. "None taken," James said. "I just bring your spotter scope and an open mind." The stage was set. Saturday morning would either be a private moment of closure for a family or a disaster that James would regret forever. He prayed it was the former. The gathering storm Saturday dawned cold and clear over Coronado. A low marine layer hugged the coast, but the forecast predicted it would burn off by mid-morning, giving way to bright sunshine. At 5:30 a.m., the Morrison household was already active. Aunt Lily stood in the kitchen, dressed in desert camouflage utilities that James had tailored to fit her. They were Nicole's old uniform, altered with care. She ate a simple breakfast of eggs and toast, no heavy food, nothing that would weigh her down or make her sluggish. James had laid out his own gear, his personal M110 semi-automatic sniper system, SASS. He had spent the previous evening checking the Zero, cleaning the bolt, and ensuring the scope mounts were torqued to spec. Now he had also adjusted the stock as far forward as it would go, and added a cheek riser to accommodate Lily's smaller frame. The rifle, even with adjustments, was heavy, nearly 15 pounds loaded. As they drove toward the isolated Precision Point range, nestled against the canyons east of the base, James glanced at his daughter. "Nervous?" "A little," Lily admitted. "But Mom always said that nervous is good. It means you're paying attention. It's fear that gets you killed." James smiled. Oh, Nicole's wisdom passed down. When they arrived, they weren't alone. Master Chief Hansen was there, as promised, sitting on the hood of a dusty pickup truck, a massive spotter scope on a tripod beside him. But he wasn't alone. Next to him stood Lieutenant Commander Rick Shark Thompson, the commander of the SEAL Sniper Cell, and 3 other SEAL snipers. They were the best of the best, men who had seen combat in multiple theaters. James's heart sank. This was supposed to be private. "Preacher," Steady said, walking over. He looked apologetic. "Word got out. I didn't say anything, but Shark saw me packing my gear at 0:30. He asked questions. I couldn't lie to my commanding officer." Lieutenant Commander Thompson stepped forward. He was a lean, intense man with eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Commander Morrison," he said respectfully, "Master Chief Hansen filled me in. I hope you don't mind the audience. When we heard that the daughter of Sergeant Nicole Morrison was making a range request, we had to see it for ourselves. We all served with her in the early days. She was one of a kind." James relaxed slightly. This wasn't a lynch mob. These were men who respected Nicole. Just then, the sound of a heavy vehicle approached. A Humvee pulled up, and out stepped Colonel Vaughn, accompanied by 2 junior Marine officers. Vaughn's face was a mask of smug satisfaction when he saw the gathering. "Oh, well," Vaughn boomed, striding over. "I heard a rumor that some kind of event was happening out here. The little girl from the O Club? I had to see this for myself. Morrison, you're actually going through with this? You're going to let your daughter play with live ammunition in front of active-duty SEALs?" Lily stood by the tailgate of James's truck watching the exchange. She showed no emotion. Lieutenant Commander Thompson turned to Vaughn, his voice flat and cold. "Colonel, with respect..."